Global funding for AI has increased by 7x since 2015.
Ask yourself, how can I use AI? If you don't, your competitors are going to be faster than you.
We don't always need to think privacy from an AI lens. We just think privacy from a privacy lens. We can rely on privacy by design and apply that on AI and kind of try to go from there.
What information is being leaked to the dark side on the AI side?
I think we all remember, 2010, 2011, there was a BGP routing mistake that rerouted 1/3 of the internet's traffic through China. The biggest risk is not using AI. It is a tool. It is here to stay. It will take over, and we have abuse in it that can go from what you think of, all the way to full runaway autonomy. Like I never thought I'd hear Skynet referred to as goal drift. Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Bil Harmer, and I'm going to be moderating today's session, The Dark Side of AI, Who Pays the Price for Progress. Today with me, I have three incredible women from a diverse background. I have Esra Al-Shawafi, who is the Senior Technical Product Manager, Helen Oakley, Senior Director of Secure Development, Shruti Mukherjee, I apologize, I am brutal on that last name, who is the Director of Governance and Risk and Compliance. I am the CEO of Killswitch Advisory. We are taking on a fairly hefty topic today, the dark side of AI. Just to set the stage, to give you an idea, there's about 67,000 AI, artificial intelligence companies in the world today. 1 in every 4 is in the US. And global funding for AI has increased by 7x since 2015 to a total of $94 billion. And we expect by 2030, global AI revenue will touch $1.9 trillion. So that brings us to our first question that I'll pose to our panel. And Esra, if you would maybe take this one first. With things like machine learning, NLP, robotics, computer vision, what does AI mean to you?
Yeah, I just want to thank you. Thanks, Bill. I just want to make it simple because, we hear AI, LP, NLP, all these terms, right? And I want to start with simple. What is AI and why all this commotion about it? So AI is amazing. You could be using it for a lot of uses. There's different use cases for it. But essentially, the whole point of AI is that we can give huge data sets, defined or not defined, and just throw it at this model and keep iterating over and over and kind of educating. It's like a child, right? You have a little kid and you're giving them information. They're just absorbing everything, and then they model a behavior and you can keep adding information to it. And so that type of exchange, right, in terms of what you give and what you expect, we cannot fully measure today. And that's where the risk lies, and how we can understand it and how we can help, put controls to give us the benefit of it, but also reduce the downsides of it.
Fantastic. That's a nice way to put it. Makes it clean. Helen, Shruti, opinions? Are you on board with this? Do you have a slightly different view?
I would like to add a little bit different perspective. So we can talk technical terms all day long and many, many hours. But for me, AI is more as, an additional team member who is helping us to do different tasks that are taking a lot of time, and maybe they're repetitive tasks and so on. So for me, if you think about it, let's say you're bringing an intern into your company to help you moving the project forward, and that intern can do some research, it can generate some result and help you. So for me, AI is kind of like at that stage. It has a lot of, am I still audible? Because my...
we can still hear you, yes.
Okay, the flick in the network. to me, it can generate and help us a lot, but we need to still monitor and teach it to do it the right way, to be our ally and continue on our goals, especially when we're talking about, those agentic AI and connecting with generative model. This is where we see the acceleration of the progress and significant shift into how we do work and how we use AI in our lives.
Absolutely. I love the additional team member, because I think we're all hearing about layoffs, efficiencies, changes in structure, and I believe it will continue to happen. I think we'll find new ways to work. Hopefully, that's what people should do. Change is simply an act of survival. But Shruti, yourself, how are you looking at it?
Thank you, Bill. I would kind of relay on what Helen just said. I was recently in a conference in Dubai, and I heard Dr. Kaspersky, who is the founder of Kaspersky, the organization we all know and love. He said something that stuck to me. He said, AI today that we see versus the one that we imagine, I'm probably not going to see until the day I'm alive, or probably in 100 years until I'm gone. So AI, the way I see it, it's what we have today versus what we want to have in the future. The one we have today is what Ellen said. It is an intern. It is at a state of an intern. It's not going to give us a lot. It has to be monitored. It has to be protected. It has to be supported. It's definitely going to help us do our jobs more efficiently, but not to an extent where you can just have it unmonitored. So yeah, I stick to that.
Excellent, and I'm glad to see Kaspersky still out there talking and doing presentations, because he's a super smart guy. So that's interesting. I love where we've gone with this, because this is leading into, I like to think about extreme future, only because in my career I've seen extreme future take years to get to. If any of you have ever worked for large organizations, which I think all of us have at one point, we know that projects move slowly, right? Changing things over, just getting rid of, I don't know, TLS 1.1. People are still using it. So moving off old technology, our technology debt is always there. And we are seeing the LLMs, the large language models, the small language models, being developed and tuned and iterated on with more and more data. So there is this desire out there to pull data in. And we know that it takes good data to make a good model, but when you start looking at things like world models, and for those that don't understand or haven't even heard the term what a world model is, that's an internal simulation of how the environment works. This is key to what Helen was saying, agentic AI. You need a world model to work through scenarios. It's just that scenario, test and repeat, and find the best solution. You need as much data as possible. And I think, when we look at where we are, do we throw water on this, or do we throw gas on it? What is sort of the opinion of the panel here on, do we go down regulatory? Do we go hard no in the organization? Do we, how do we slap controls on it? I know it's a big question, but I'll let you go wherever you want. Helen, how about we start with you?
I love this question, and we can go philosophical on this one, right? Anyway, I think we always try to strike a balance, our best practices, safety, privacy, security, for people, because what we're trying to do with technology is improve people's lives, to allow them to focus on what's important by automating different workflows and work, and specifically with AI. But we don't always find enough, let's say, attention unless the regulatory piece come in play. And unfortunately, I think we have to go to that to a certain extent, not to block innovation in anyhow, but really work through enabling innovation with proper risk assessment. And I would like to bring EU AI Act to this point, because this one shifts significantly the whole industry. It's been rolled out last year, but there will be updates for the next year as well. Nevertheless, right now we can already see how it shifts. Now every vendor or any organization that provides a software that has AI, doesn't have to implement the model, right? We can consume model and we can embed the model in our solutions and package it and provide, is already going to be considered as a regulated industry. And that's a huge shift in the whole software industry right now that we're going to see. So consider as building planes or building cars, right? Now we also have to provide the safety metrics and reports and certifications perhaps as well on how we build our software with safety if we have AI. And who doesn't have AI today, really?
Absolutely nobody. Like, I mean, I don't think I've seen anybody, and anybody that doesn't, good for them. Somebody's sticking it out to their original business model. Shruti, how would you look at this? Like, I have a contentious opinion on the EU AI Act, not because I don't think it's good, but there are some interesting things that come out of it that really can slow business down, cost a lot more, drive prices up, and could impact the innovation side. So, Shruti, how do you feel?
I would say EU AI Act at its current state, it definitely is going to get through more revisions and it's going to reach a state. But I have always been a big advocate of not hindering the progress, because not hindering the advancement, because no matter how much I want to do my job, I want to be a regulator, I always have to understand that progress is going to happen no matter how much I want to, put controls around it and make sure that the boxes are checked, the security is there, privacy is there. So I think it also has to be a balance, striking a balance, and as well as if I am to assess, I would start by just focusing on what I have today, and as an organization, the assets, and how AI impacts me, and at what level, and assessing the risk. Not everything that's happening out there, or not all the changes, might affect me as an organization or as a person. So a basic risk assessment or applicability would help me understand how it impacts me and kind of go from there. It doesn't need to be big, it doesn't need to be a lot, but yes, the world is changing and there is no stopping it. So instead of kind of become having my regulatory glasses and say, hey, let's put an act, let's try to hinder it and let's try to regulate it, let's just act with it.
Interesting. I like that. We do have to look at ourselves and figure out how we handle these things. Esra, I'll ask you sort of down that regulatory path. Given that globally, it's really difficult to implement regulations globally, and we saw this with EU data privacy. It became very, very difficult. Thankfully, the EU came together, brought GDPR out. For those of you that don't know what happened before GDPR, go look it up. It was an absolute nightmare. But when you've got China, Russia, Iran, any of the countries out there that simply disregard the standards or the regulations that they're trying to put around, how do you deal with something like that? Is it better to say, okay, well, if they won't do it, I won't do it, or do we take the higher road? Is it a higher road? Is there a moral road in this?
Right. I'm going to tie that also to what Shruti was saying, right? If I am an organization, there's different countries that I might be operating with. I need to assess my business. I need to assess what's best for me, right? And where do I operate, right? And based on that, because you cannot control countries' regulation, like you just mentioned. You cannot control what regulations they're going to have. What you can control is how you're going to operate your business and how you're going to hedge the risk against these regulations that might hinder the innovation, or however we want to call it, right? So I think the step one is to understand what's around you from a regulation perspective. How does it impact your business? And then ask yourself, how can I use AI? I am with the idea of to use it to help you, right? Not to be like, no, because if you don't, your competitors are going to be faster than you, because that's the whole point of AI, right? So take it, understand what it is, educate your employees, educate your company about what it is, what are the models, and what are the products that are fit for us, and in what countries we think it's safe to operate in if we have that ability, right? And then from there, you can understand 101 cybersecurity measures, right? Hey, what is this AI model? Can I understand what data is being fed to it? You got to understand that from vendors. And if they don't have that because it's dictated by regulation, you dictate your own regulatory, procedures that, hey, if I'm going to be conducting this type of contract with this vendor, I need to answer to X, Y, and Z to be comfortable to be able to consume this product. And the first question that comes to my mind is like, what is your model based off? How that data is being consumed? How are you securing it in case of a breach? What happened? Your one-on-one security questions, right? So that's how I would go about it.
Excellent. I love it. We've all touched on the abuse. So let's dig into the abuse a little bit. I'm a firm believer that eventually the apps on my iPhone or my Android disappear and I end up with a personal AI that does things because my phone's there to do things for me. Call somebody, book a ticket, find a map, look something up, post this picture. So in the world of the future, which I think is somewhere around Tuesday of next week, we're going to have agentic models that mimic us, and the privacy aspect is going to come in. How would you go about securing or protecting a privacy model like that? And how do we bring real privacy in to something like this? Because this, as data gets into the systems, becomes Big Brother to an exponential degree, right? Where there is no way to disappear on the internet. You'll have tracking all the way through it. Now it'll be able to deduce who you are based on behavior. So how do we balance that? Shruti, I'm going down a horrible path here, I know. So
Sure.
You can have a first run at it.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying, like, if a regulator comes to you and say that they have the answer, they're completely lying. None of the regulators have the answers. And none of the government bodies, nobody has the answers, because we are dealing with something that's unpredictable. And I think Esra has mentioned that, Helen has mentioned that already. Something which has its own mind, possibly at a stage, and something which is going to give us answers that we cannot decode. Not at its current state, or maybe in a future state, it's going to get more and more complicated. So when I see, when I try to understand the impact and I try to understand, like, what are the guardrails or the data privacy aspects, as you mentioned, I try to go very, very basic. And I try to think that I would evolve with time as more information becomes known to me. So my rule of thumb is always to go back and assess the risk, understand how the data flows through the system, what are the system that's being touched, and kind of from there, look into the sensitivity of the data and look into what type of data is there and build upon that. So, and definitely, I'm going to wait for more frameworks to come in. We already have ISO 42001 at its basic state. We have EU AI Act. I'm going to rely on all the regulators to figure it out and all the government bodies to help and take that. But there is, of course, other already defined measures in terms of privacy. We don't always need to think privacy from an AI lens. We just think privacy from a privacy lens. We can rely on privacy by design and apply that on AI and kind of try to go from there. It's not the best answer, it's not the most fitting answers, but it is the answer that we have today.
I think it's a great answer, because you tied it back to some of the basics that, quite frankly, I think as the new shiny tools come flying out, we forget about. Privacy by design. And I'll reiterate this, and you guys can disagree with me, but privacy is not just about PII. It is about the correct dissemination of information at the correct time to the correct person under the correct conditions. So that can be marketing material, financial information, etc. And security is simply the tools we use to implement that. That is our game. That is where we play. And so because this is another tool, AI is simply a tool for now until it takes over. It's our overlord. We have to apply the same thing. So I think you bring us back to basics around asset management, understanding what assets you have, where they are. Helen, I'd love your take on this one, because this is data privacy at its finest. And I know you're a severe advocate for this. But how do you feel? Should we go back to basics and simply start to continue to reinforce? Or in some cases, I know lots of organizations do not have a good inventory of data assets.
I agree with what Shruti said. She outlined it very perfectly, and that actually takes me to things that we have a concept of shift left, right? So when we are implementing system for users to use, for other organizations to use, we need to think from the end user privacy perspective and take it into the left in the process, in the development process, where we need to assess those risks and go through things like threat modeling, for example, right? So what Shruti had explained is how we need to look at the data. And we, aside of regulatory bodies, don't expect that they will explain everything how to do things, right? For that, we have open source frameworks and groups and organizations like OVAS, for example, who provide this guidance for organizations to help to do threat modeling, risk assessment on AI system, on agentic system, and just regular threat modeling. And yes, Bill, you're right. We have to look at the basics because, hey, AI is just another type of technology that we still have to secure. And it's amuses me how much we can forget when something new and shiny comes out to check for things like, authorizations or privacy, right? We just dive in and we develop, which is great. But it's good that we have people like us and those who are really pioneering these concepts and reminding everybody that think about that. We've learned so many lessons in the past and we shouldn't fail from the start here because we know so much already.
I think you're absolutely right. I would say, yes, shift left, but don't give up the right. I think, unfortunately, in a lot of shift left, I've seen people go, okay, well, I don't need to do what's over on the right. I'll do it over on the left. And we're just bouncing back. I think we need to encompass all of it as we go forward. Esra, I'd like to get your opinion sort of as you get into that data. Helen touched on sort of the ingestion of data and the training and the learning. How do you figure we should be managing this? Because DLP rarely works. There hasn't been a decent DLP system in a long time. But how do we control our data and make sure that it's not being either inappropriately ingested, which I'm sure it is across everything because everything now has AI in it and it's all over the place. But even on the training side, where internally our organization might say, hey, we're going to stand up our own LLM because we don't want to trust one of the open ones. So we'll train it ourselves. And if you don't know how to train a model, you could be overcommitting it. You could be literally training it to memorize data, in which case you've got the ability to leak it afterwards. How do you feel about going down that path? Like, where would you see a good place to start doing the protection?
Yeah. So back to what the ladies were saying. Yeah. For ingesting the data, you got to follow Cybersecurity 101. Yes, there might be issues there, right? And then you can implement detective controls, right, of what data has been ingested, et cetera, right? The training piece is the very interesting piece, Bill, because we don't have that today, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to give you something. And then, the response and how that model works is unexpected. But what I have seen happen is you actually can train it to do good things. So basically, just like how you're training the intern, you're telling the intern, this is the code of conduct. Do not break it. Because we're humans, just like AI, right? We can spill information. We are the weakest link, right? So we give you manuals. We have you sign on some contracts so you don't go and do something wrong. You do it as well, and then we handle the consequences. But essentially the same thing. So that's how you're training the model. You need to give the model things that it shouldn't break, right? And then continue to train it to ensure that it doesn't spill information that you don't want to be spilled. Just like how you train it to perform in a certain way, you need to also train it to not spill out information in a certain way. So that's how I would take on it. In terms of what you were saying regarding, should I have an already model and then kind of use it for my business, or should I develop my own? I think that's a decision a business should make. Based on their talent, based on the business they're in, how sensitive that business, how regulated. There's a lot of questions to be asked. And again, that's risk assessment 101, right? What is the risk of me doing this versus that? And then, what is the opportunity that I'm going to gain by going either path? So, yeah. So that would be kind of my answer to your question.
Interesting. I like it. Again, using what we know, we are entering a world that we don't know, which is, and I still see the convergence of AI on quantum computing, because at that point you literally cannot understand how the decision was made, just because of the way it operates. But when we look at simulation as exploitation, we look at untraceable decision making, deceptive capabilities. We're seeing the attacks come faster, better. Are you all familiar with Fraud GPT, the unbounded version of ChatGPT that's been spun up? It has no guardrails. Grok on X has no guardrails. The thesis is we're adults, act like it. Not sure I totally agree with that, because but it becomes now we are now looking to build, deploy, and defend against. And sort of bringing this back into the cyber world, do you see this as a critical component to cyber defense, that we bring in agentic AI to operate at machine speed? Esra, you're up, still up. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I'm going to bring it back, right? When the internet came into existence, right, we spent that and added it to our, cybersecurity. We should use agentic AI to our advantage. There's bad actors, good actors, this whole threat modeling, and hunt should continue, and it will continue as forever we live with the new technologies that are going to happen. But I think what you were saying is very interesting, right? And it's okay, you have ChatGPT, and now I took it, and it's similar to Tor, if you remember the dark web, right? We have all this regulated web, and then they went to Tor, and God knows what happened at Tor, right? And all whatever, essentially it's the same thing, right? So the answer here is, what information is being leaked to the dark side on the AI side, and how that is being modeled, what that is spitting, and understanding that and how it might impact your organization will be interested. So it's good to know what's out there. It's good to know how it works, and use tools like threat modeling or vendors that use that and scan the web and see what's happening to inform you on how to protect yourself and your organization from these threats.
That's a really interesting one. What data is being used? I think we all remember, what was it, 2010, 2011, there was a BGP routing mistake that rerouted 1/3 of the internet's traffic through China. And it was encrypted, it was SSL, great. But now that we have quantum computing coming online that can break RSA, can break elliptical curve, that hack now, harvest now, decrypt later is coming true. And it will be used, I believe it will be used to train some models for human deception, even something as crazy as almost full government influencing. Which I think we see today with a lot of social media, a lot of media issues around what you see, what you get to hear, that I think we will start to see more, what's the word for it? Information warfare, just simply done that way. Shruti, we're coming up to the end here. What would you like the audience, and there's a couple questions in the chat that we'll try to get to, but what would you like the audience to take away from this?
I would like to encourage the usage of AI. I would be lying if I say that I don't use it every day, every second. And I cannot today imagine a life where AI is not part of almost everything that I do. The way I see it is I remain cautiously optimistic. You mentioned, Bill, the usage of AI in cybersecurity. I have seen some cybersecurity tools with AI powered and GRC tool as well, and what it can achieve, especially with redundant stuff, getting us more efficiency, especially for small teams, I would say, and smaller organization SMBs. So I think it's a great thing what we have today, and it's going to help us. We have to remain cautiously optimistic, and we have to understand what we're doing and go from there.
Absolutely, and absolutely. I mean, you look at cyber tools. We have been using machine learning and forms of artificial intelligence in sandboxing and behavioral analytics for a better part of a decade, if not more. Esra, how about yourself? What would you like to leave the audience with on this?
I would say, instead of getting scared of it, educate yourself and your organization as much as you can, and start playing with this thing. Don't run away.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I did when I was at Kraft, I signed everybody up for accounts, got them enterprise accounts because at least I could control what was happening within the enterprise account. And then everybody had a place to go play, try, touch, feel, the whole bit. Helen, yourself.
Yeah, I would like to also add to what Esra and Shruti said. The biggest risk is not using AI. Actually, we can use AI to also fight AI, right? All these models that are now being trained on the dark web. And we know that it always will happen, that attackers will misuse the tools and they will use it to their advantage. So now we need to take advantage of AI to help us fight that. Yeah, so that's one thing. And another thing, I'm a huge advocate of transparency. And I think this is how we can also assess our risks by understanding what AI is doing, what those systems are doing. For example, we have the supply chain transparency. There's so many issues that we know right now that can bring different vulnerabilities in your organization by adopting those models, right, or adapting those systems. So make sure that you follow and perform those best practices. Do your risk assessment, like threat modeling and third-party risk assessment. All these aspects, even if they're not provided in the regulatory requirements right now or explained, there are great open resources that are available for organizations to adapt and learn and really integrate that into your processes so that you do it from the start and not leaving it until the later when something happens.
Gotcha. Absolutely great advice. I really like the biggest risk is not using AI. It is a tool. It is here to stay. It will take over, and we have abuse in it that can go from what you think of, all the way to full runaway autonomy. Like I never thought I'd hear Skynet referred to as goal drift, but that is what it was. I want to thank everyone. I've had a great time. I have learned so much on this. I truly wish we could have done like a half day on this because there's some really, really meaty topics in here. But I'm going to turn this back over to our hosts at CyberX and the Women in Cybersecurity. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.